The general contour of the roller coaster remained the same, but now, with the illusion lifted, it became obvious that it was in fact a large serpentine beast. Its snake-like body, rising and curling about in the same path that the train had appeared to take, its massive head lay on the entrance, and as I watched as a line of waiting riders walked willingly into its open mouth, they appeared to be chatting excitedly until, with the 10th individual passing into the horrifying void, quieting. The maw clashed down, shut. After a couple long moments, the 10 twitching lumps quieted, then began to pass through the creature like a constrictor digesting its prey. The jaws opened again, with the next 10 passed inside. My petrified attention turned to the Ferris wheel, which had been revealed by the amulet as a massive spider web stretched among the trees. Again, docilely waiting children stood and waited their turn as one by one they were scooped up by gigantic arachnids the size of ponies, rapidly enveloped in webbing and hung upside down until the many spokes of the silken construct at the center of the web rested at a massive spider easily 10 times as large as the others. Periodically, the smaller creatures would retrieve one of the thrashing capsules and deposit it in front of what must have been the queen, her front legs quickly positioning the captive. A quick flash of fangs the size of railroad spikes would pierce the prey, the paralyzing venom holding it still for her to subsequently devour the hopefully unknowing victim. The haunted house was perhaps the most horrific of them all. A stage was set before the structure, which I now saw was built entirely of human bones, of all shapes and sizes. Upon the stage sat a throne similarly constructed, and upon it rested a creature of sylvan and utterly inhuman nature. Though the creature was unquestionably male, based on the enormous flaccid member lying between its legs, its features were distinctly feminine. Curled ram horns spouted from either side of its head, and its softly lined face dominated by large almond-shaped eyes, as black as moonless night. Around the stage there rose a number of sharpened stakes, perhaps 10 feet tall, and affixed atop each was a child, still very much alive. The being on the throne exhibited an air of almost casual boredom. With the motion of easy indifference, extended a hand holding a golden chalice, allowing it to be filled with blood oozing from one of the impaled children. Before taking the unholy beverage to its lips and drinking deeply, a wash of sickly crimson bathing its mouth, the creature wiped away the residue with the back of its hand, drying it upon the thickly matted hair sprouting from its chest. Its dark eyes flicked to me where I stood staring, and it smiled knowingly at me and winked. The idiosyncrasies of the motion, a perfect copy of the expression the animated moon had given to me earlier. I don't know how long I'd been standing there, desperately trying to move, but too terrified to even twitch. The warmth of urine running down my leg after my bladder involuntarily emptied itself, when a voice again addressed me from behind. "Beautiful, isn't she? Don't you agree with me?" Though an intense effort of will I turned, the humanoid being was more than 10 feet tall, and hid half as wide, white and hairless, its eyeless face split open by 2 wide smiles, containing perhaps 100 crooked teeth, serrated like a shark. Its long arms hung past its knees and terminated in large knuckled hands, seemingly big enough to envelop me completely and tipped with wicked-looking claws. I saw that one of the fingers had been run through a small corpse, the body dressed in a recognizable sage green outfit, then revealed the identity of the speaker, of whom I had earlier made my acquaintance. "She certainly is Binkle," I somehow managed to reply, my shaking voice barely a whisper. The creature's smile widened even farther, seemingly pleased that I remembered it. "Why is Master Trevor not having his fun? Has he not found something that he would like to have done?" No, Binkle, that's not it." My entire body was shaking. as I faced the monster in front of me. Its hand moving, the little green-suited corpse in time with its words. "It's just, I think my grandparents will be worried if I'm gone too long. They didn't know I would be leaving. So I think it's best that I'm going home now. That makes Binkle feel blue. Though what you say is likely true. You've taken nothing and thus still pure. Master Trevor can leave, if he is sure." "I'm sure," I squeaked. The creature named Binkle shrugged. "In case Master Trevor must be going then." It said, its blind head crooked, serpentine tongue dripping with saliva, licking its fish white lips. "We'll have fun when you visit Fay Hollow again." It extended its arm past me in a gesture directing me back towards the entrance to the fairgrounds. On wooden legs I walked, rigid, and barely keeping my balance, edging past the monster called Binkle, my hand never leaving the amulet in my pocket. Just as I passed through the wooden archway, I heard a voice, soft and feminine, call out to me, "Be seeing you, Trevor." I kept walking, strains of silvery music still echoing in my ears, its siren song haunting my every step despite everything I had seen. Whatever magic that powered it was potent enough to still make a part of me want to turn back. Just as I had on my trip to reach Fay Hollow, can't say how long or how far I traveled to get out, just that at some point the strange eldritch twilight gave way to mundane sunshine, before depositing me in a part of the forest that I recognized. I slowly lurched back to my grandparents' house, wordless and shaken, somehow making it to the front porch before collapsing from exhaustion and fear. I don't remember my grandmother finding me, though I think I remember her scream of fright when she did. And I have a faint recollection of my grandfather taking me up in his strong arms, and at that point I completely lost track of things for a little while. When I finally woke up in the hospital a week later, my parents were there, my mother and my grandmother, keeping careful vigil over me. After that, it took me quite a while to remember anything that had happened that day at Fay Hollow. I suppose that's what trauma does to you. Sometimes when your mind simply isn't capable of coping with something that's seen, I recovered slowly but surely. And if the adults were frustrated in my inability to tell them anything about what had put me into my catatonic state, that was far outweighed by their relief that I was getting better. That was it for my grandparents' house for the summer, as my mom wanted to keep me a more careful eye on me. I can't rightly say why, but it wasn't until the next year, pulling back on my shorts I'd been wearing that fateful day, that my hand found the amulet somehow still in the pocket, where it had been left, and the memories all came rushing back to me. The hospital stay was shorter that time, a couple days when I woke up. The doctor thought I must have some sort of epilepsy, though I think that was more because they couldn't figure out what else it could possibly be that was causing my fits. Nevertheless, the second shock must have been enough to inoculate me to the experience, because once I woke up again, I was able to remember everything I'd seen without going back into a coma, even when I found the amulet on my dresser where my mom had put it. I spent a lot of free time after that just sitting in my room, studying the amulet. I took to wearing it underneath my shirt at all times. The conclusion I'd reached was that I'd rather see the scary things coming than be surprised when they got there. On weekends I started going to the library, poring over books in the New Age and occult section, seeing if I could find anything that would tell me exactly what the pendant was. But I never really found out much of anything that I could attribute to it. Same with the whole concept of Fay Hollow. Sure, there were plenty of myths and stories about fairylands, or heck, even some kind of extra-dimensional hellscapes. But for every similarity one story or another had, there was always many more things that just didn't match up. But every time I did, my thoughts would rush back to the amulet. I had to have found it someplace. All thoughts of what I did or didn't happen went away the next summer at my grandparents' house. It had taken some convincing on my mom, but I really did want to spend time with them. Besides, despite how scared I was, there was part of me that wanted to confirm once and for all exactly what I had seen. At first, my grandmother wouldn't let me go out alone, but eventually I got her to worn down. Wandering through the woods, it didn't take me long before I came upon the same strangely twisting path I'd found 2 years before. It wasn't in the same place as the first time, but the silvery strains of music trying to draw me down it let me know beyond the shadow of a doubt that it was the same trail I'd found before. It was terrifying how hard it was for me to resist that cloying temptation, but holding tightly onto the pendant I wore around my neck, I managed to turn and walk home without looking back. That was the last time I voluntarily went walking into the woods. I thought I was free of Fay Hollow. For a while, I was right. The first time I realized I might not have got away scot-free was when I idly looked out the window of my bedroom in my parents' suburban home, only to find the neighbor's house in the yard had been replaced by a thick, old-growth forest, and with strangely twisting unpaved trail running through it. The barest hint of silvery music just reached my ears before I drew the blinds. After that, I had to be careful. Every once in a while, I would be walking down the sidewalk, and if I let my thoughts wander, would find myself heading down the forest path, the unmistakable lilt of music drawing me ever onwards, the strange eldritch stars and moons shining down on me from beneath the thick tree branches above. Once I was studying in the library, I went back to the stacks to grab a book, and turning to go back to my table, realized I was on the trail to the grove. On another occasion, the music spell had captured me so thoroughly that I was in sight of the wooden entryway in the fairgrounds before I managed to finally realize what was happening. I can't say the effort and time and distance I had to travel back to wherever I had left, though still unknowable, seemed to somehow shorten every time. The fear was always there, though. That continued on for some long years. Abruptly, when I turned 18, it stopped altogether. I don't rightly know what about it being a legal adult that did it, or if it would have made a difference if I'd been born in a country where adulthood was considered to be at an earlier or later age. All I do know is that once I hit college, at some point that first semester, I realized I'd been walking to the student lounge, daydreaming, and hadn't ended up wandering on the familiar forest path. At some point, after a long deliberation and a lot more second guessing, I finally took off the amulet. I'm in my 30s now. For a long while, I thought that I wouldn't get married, but then I found a woman that I absolutely couldn't dream of living without. I thought for sure that I would never have kids, but she wants them, and there's no way I can deny her that either. But I worry. If I have a child, will the grove come for them? Will they someday find themselves walking along a strangely twisting trail through the ancient woods with a full moon shining down upon them through the creaking branches and the haunting silver music drawing them onwards to the fairgrounds at Fay Hollow? Will the strange creature Finkel greet them the way he did me and invite them to join in for the fun? Will the terrible sylvan creature on the throne of bones grin and wink at them knowingly? I still have the amulet. I don't know how it ended up in that tree, and I don't know what providence let me stop and grab it that first day on my way to Fay Hollow. All I know is that it saved my life. Maybe my very soul. It sure didn't stop the hollow from trying to get at me, but at the very least, it allowed me to see the hollow monsters for what they truly were. It will belong to my child. Once he or she is old enough, I'll tell them my story. Although maybe I'll leave out some of the more gruesome parts. At first, it's a poor inheritance to be sure, but it's also a lesson to all of us to learn. Monsters exist. At some point, we all have to decide if you'll open our eyes to them or stay willfully blind. They'll tempt us, sell us beautiful lies, and ask us to join in their fun. But if we tell them no, should we go about our day simply floating, we may wake up to realize too late that they've taken us. And if we go too long, we may find that we have been devoured. Thank you for joining us tonight on Eerie Hour with Erich. If you liked what you heard, hit the like and subscribe. Hit the little notification bell. Check out the channel for other videos by other guest readers and of course our very own Eerie Erich. And feel free to share this video with your friends. Like us on both Facebook and Instagram. Dreams can come reality. Dreams can also become nightmares. But can nightmares become reality? We'll let you be the judge. Tune in next week for the next segment of Eerie Hour with Erich.